I'm Fonzo.
And I'm Eliza.
And we're the co-host of Grown, a podcast from the Moth that shows we're never fully grown.
Growing up feels like a phase that should end at some point, but does it ever really? Whether you're 16 or 26 or 86, you're gonna have to deal with family drama, your body, and the type of person you want to be. So why not put it all out in the open and go through it together?
Join us every other week to deal with cringe, culture, and the courageous efforts of people like you to get grown.
Start listening today. Follow Grown on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now.
It happened on an island off the coast of Spain. My first experience with nudism. I know, it's a cliche that I first got naked in public in Southern Europe, but it's the truth. Most beaches on the island were top optional. But we stumbled upon one particular beach where everyone was completely undressed. The motivating factor for taking off my swimsuit was that it actually felt more uncomfortable to be the only clothed one on the beach. I spent the first 10 minutes on my towel with my gaze down, convinced that everyone was looking at me, and just knew that I was not the kind of person who felt comfy with no clothes on. But when I finally looked up, it quickly became clear. My discomfort with my nude body was all my own. This is Embodied, our show tackling sex, relationships, and your health. I'm Anita Rao.
My first experience with nudism was with my parents when we had a pool, and we would jump in at night, sans clothing, and it was normal. Nobody gave a darn.
I teach a naked yoga class at Three House Studios in Durham through the lens of defeating shame. Shame is a feeling that we are taught. It is given to us. We weren't born ashamed. So I shed it. I literally remove the trappings of a capitalist society and explore my body through movement and meditation.
Hi, my name is Jill, and my favorite part of being a nudist is skinny dipping. Pool parties are the best. It is so refreshing not to have to worry about how you look. Everyone just has a good time. Just don't forget the suntan lotion.
Naturism and nudism are movements grounded in the belief that non-sexual social nudity is a path toward more self-connection, body acceptance, and freedom. Today, we're revisiting a conversation we had about this topic back in 2021, when those communities were really blossoming. We started talking with WUNC's own Naomi Brown, who practices naturism. Since we recorded this episode, Naomi got married. We started off talking about how Naomi got into naturism.
There wasn't really a defining moment in my life where I was like, oh, now I'm officially into naturism and now I'm officially a nudist. I've always been comfortable with my body. I've always been comfortable being naked. Growing up, I always remember hanging out with my mom while she would be getting dressed to go to an event or something like that. And of course, she'd be naked, in the process of putting on a ball gown or whatever. And I don't know if that kind of seeing her naked and seeing her cesarean scar and how she just didn't care about it. I don't know if that kind of just was like osmosis to me or something, but I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, sure. Naked is the way to go. During college, I did go through a difficult period, and I actually went to a nudist colony for the first time just to kind of get back to normal, I guess get my power back to myself. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, cool. But I've always been comfortable just with the naked human body.
So when you had the traumatic experience in college, what made you decide to turn to naturism as a way of processing that? What appealed about going to a nudist space?
For me, it was I just needed to have my body back. I feel after, my traumatic experience, I felt like my body wasn't my own. And so I was like, okay, I need to do something because I'm not feeling like myself. I have low confidence, low self-esteem, all of that. I need to do something to bring myself back to who I am, this confident woman who just, thinks I'm the hottest thing walking. So I went to the nudist colony, and it was just great. I went there for a tour just to get used to the area. And immediately I see, this like 80-year-old man who's giving me a tour naked on the golf cart. And I was like, yeah, okay, this is the place for me.
What do you think it is about being nude that makes you feel more in touch with your own body? Because I know for some folks, and me personally, at times when my body has changed, maybe I have the impulse of wanting to cover it more and kind of avoid changes or avoid being more drawn to thinking about my body. Why did you go the other way?
I don't think I'm making some kind of conscious effort to, say, oh, my body's changing, I should get naked to accept it or whatever. It's just part of who I am. It's just a natural thing. So I'm naked all the time, and I see my body go through all these changes, and I'm like, okay, you gained 20 pounds. Okay, you've lost 20 pounds. Oh, you have muscle. Oh, you don't have muscle. Oh, you're getting stretch marks and cellulite. Oh, well, your body is still going to be your body, and you better just learn to deal with it. So it's just always been a natural thing for me.
You mentioned that early experience of going into a nudist colony. And a big important part of nudism and naturism is unlinking being naked from sex. So tell me about kind of your orientation toward that major tenet of the movement, and whether that was something that you needed to really work toward or whether that felt very natural to you.
With nudism and naturism and all that, and being in this nudist colony, they obviously have the rules for you. You can't stare at anyone. You have to have a towel with you, not doing any lewd behavior or anything like that. It was just such a lovely experience. I mean, even though it was a dark time in my life, I look back on it with such fond memories, because I lived there for 6 months, and I feel like I got to know people on a much deeper level than I normally would, because I'm getting to know you beyond just what you're wearing. I feel like I just connected with everyone on such a deeper level because we all were naked and we all had the same kind of mindset when it comes to life and, getting to know one another.
That mindset is shared by hundreds of thousands of people, according to the American Association for Nude Recreation.
Why do I participate in it? Because it's freeing. Because I'm an old hippie. And old hippies, like young hippies, tend to rebel.
My goal is to get to a place where I can examine my body with curiosity and wonder, rather than anger, resentment, or disgust. And frankly, it should be our right to walk outside naked and not fear for our safety.
When you are nude, you are your truest self. There isn't any hiding behind clothes. Shyness goes away, and self-esteem goes way up. Truly, life is better in the nude. Try it.
Naturists and nudists seek out opportunities to be socially nude, whether that's at a campground, a pool, a beach, or in the comfort of their own home. Unlinking sex from nudity is one of the core tenets of these movements. Jay Shapiro has been part of the nudism movement since the 1970s. Today, he's the lead coordinator of Triangle Area Naturists, a club based in North Carolina that hosts clothing-optional house parties. When it comes to the terminology naturist versus nudist, Jay says it's mostly a matter of semantics.
Nudists like to live their life without clothes. Naturists also like to live their life without clothes. Naturists will talk about feeling closer to nature, feeling a part of nature, feeling the textures of nature, wind, breeze, sun, water, all over their body. If you tell someone that you're a naturist, someone who is not familiar with it, the first thing they usually say is, "Oh, you mean you study nature?" And so what I say is, well, I do, but what I really mean is I'm a nudist. I'm not crazy about clothes. It's a matter of just getting to know people for who they are. You're not concerned with how you look, with what they're thinking of you, with how they look. You're just meeting sort of mind to mind, eyes to eyes. You don't know what anybody does for a living. You don't know what their economic status is. They're just exceptionally open and friendly people. And that's just immensely appealing.
You were in the early 90s. There was a news article about you and your participation in a nudist club in North Carolina. Tell me a bit about how your coworkers approached you after that and the kinds of conversations it opened up for you with them.
It was really quite humorous. The reporter had, it was announced that a reporter was coming to the middle of nowhere, which is the name of this unfortunately short-lived landed club just south of Kittrell, or in Kittrell, which is near Henderson. And apparently, as the reporter would talk to people, they gave only their first name. She had a standard question, said, your name, what do you do for a living, where do you work? And apparently everyone else said, well, just Joe or Sally, and didn't give any information. Silly me. I said, I'm Jay Shapiro. I'm information developer for IBM. And I talked about whatever she wanted to hear. And about a week later, I'm sitting in my office working away, and somebody comes to the door and goes, hey, nice article. And I turn around and look, and they got a grin on their face and walked off. A minute later, somebody else comes by. Hey, great article, Jay. What are you talking about? And they're gone. The third time this happened, I said, what article? What are you talking about? Oh, you haven't read the N&O today. No, I haven't. Why? You should read it. So I did. And there's the article, and it's first name only, first name only, first name only. And then Jay Shapiro, an information developer with IBM. And I thought, okay, I've just been outed. So I had a few people ask me about it and why do I do it, and that was about it. I didn't make any converts and I didn't make any enemies. I went on to work for a couple of decades more, and again, never had any negative repercussions from it.
Naomi, I want to hear from you. I mean, you are a journalist and you're a public person. Do you have any reservations about disclosing this part of your life publicly?
No, I think it's because I am not the type of person who goes off shouting from the rooftops, "Hey, I'm nudist," or whatever. You know how some people, like, their dietary need or, whatever is like their only personality trait. So it's like, "Hi, my name's Bob. I'm vegan." It's like, no. So I mean, I have no problems though letting people know if they ask that I'm nudist, because I don't really see it as that big of a deal. It's because it's not like I'm doing anything inappropriate. I'm just being naked. There's nothing inappropriate about being naked. So, yeah.
And I mean, I guess that really points to one of the core confusions that folks have is really linking being naked with sex. And I'm curious to talk with both of you about the unlinking of that and how this experience of nudism and naturism has been a part of that process for you. So Naomi, when you're in relationship with folks, how do you distinguish being naked just to be naked with intimacy?
For me, I mean, I'm engaged now, but I let my fiance know, not super early on, but I let him know, like, hey, you know that I'm a nudist, right? And he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, I'm just letting you know. So if you see me naked, it's not because it's time to, do things. It's just because I'm naked. And he's like, all right, well, as long as you put a towel down when you sit on the couch. And I was like, of course. But when it gets time to become intimate, that's when you put on the, cute things and whatnot. Other than that, if he sees me walking around naked because I'm just walking around naked, he's just going to be like, okay, well, what else is new today?
I mean, it's like there's an intergenerational component of this. Like, Jay, you invited your mom to join you at a nude beach at one point. So tell us about that experience and kind of part of that in the journey of unlinking sex and nudity.
Well, actually, it wasn't a nude beach. It was a nude resort.
Oh, okay.
And this would have been back in probably around 1980. And had a motorhome at the time, and my wife at the time and I were avid nudists. We went to nude beaches, and we were a member of this particular club out in California. And I told my mother about it, just mentioning is where we go on the weekends. And she thought that sounded really interesting. I said, come join us. She had a little motorhome herself. And so she decided to do that. And she came out. We got paged that we had a visitor at the gate. We walked down there wearing nothing but birthday suits. And we showed her where her campsite was. She just kind of joined right in. My mother has always been kind of adventurous. She lived to be 94 years, 7 months, and 2 days. And it's very rare when she wasn't doing something that caused gasps by somebody.
I want to talk a bit about the community aspects of this, making sure that these spaces are ones in which everyone feels comfortable. So if you're going to go to a nude resort, sometimes there are background checks that are done, clear guidelines about what you can and can't do. Naomi, for you, you first entered one of these nudist spaces as a young woman after going through some trauma. What did it take for you to feel safe in these nudist and naturist spaces? What is done to make folks feel safe?
For me, when they were explaining the background check and the process that they go through to vet that people, are who they say they are and that they're legit before they even let someone think of living there, that's what really made me feel comfortable. They also let me know about the complaint process if I feel like someone's being inappropriate towards me or just doing something not good while living in the colony. That really made me feel very, very comfortable to know that they were so secure and that they cared about your well-being.
Jay, you're part of an organization that has events at various people's homes, and there's also a nudist resort in North Carolina. Are there any particular things that you do, processes that you have to make sure that people feel comfortable? Do you interview people before they join or anything like that?
Yes, we do. When somebody applies, we use a company that does background checks to do a deep dive background check. We want to make sure that we don't have anybody joining who has got a questionable history regarding other people and their relation, how they deal with other people. And then we also do an in-person interview. But we do have the behavioral rules that are stated in our joining documents. People have to sign them. And if anyone should feel, we make it clear to all new members, if you feel that something inappropriate is going on or is being directed at you, let one of the steering committee members know, and we will immediately take action.
Making sure folks feel comfortable in nudist spaces is a priority for leaders and facilitators like Jay, as is examining who feels welcome to come to those spaces in the first place.
It's not enough to just talk about naturist spaces being equal. They also have to be inclusive. We have to be willing to cultivate spaces where people who are not the typical majority white culture that's in the naturist community are going to feel safe.
Earl from the website Clothes Free Life is one of many pushing the movement to think more deeply about diversity. There's also the Black Naturist Association that advocates, cultivates resources, and plans trips for naturists of color.
If you can see someone that looks like you doing something, then it makes you feel as though you can do it and it is possible. And that is why, again, representation is so important.
Naomi is a young Black woman, and she says, yeah, representation is super important to her. So I asked her if she often sees people who look like her in the naturist spaces she goes to.
No. It's always older white folks. And, it is what it is. At least when I was younger, I was like, well, there's nothing I can really do about it. But I have some friends who are a part of the Black Naturist Association, and I've, done a meetup with them. Other than that, most of my experiences have all been with all older white naked people. I'm lucky if I see, a Latino person or an Asian person. That's like a good diverse group day. But yeah, diversity isn't really something I've experienced much in the nudism community.
What do you think are some of the reasons for that, the structural barriers and otherwise?
I mean, I want to say as a Black person, I feel like the Black community can be a bit more conservative when it comes to certain things. So I am not expecting, many Black people to be into nudism or, that kind of thing. So I think being conservative and then just not being exposed to it as well, that's another thing.
Yeah, the imagery is of the movements are definitely very much still older and whiter. And I also wonder, about kind of pushing back against the way that women's bodies, and especially Black women's bodies, have been sexualized and hypersexualized. Is that kind of context ever in your mind, or is pushing back against that a part of how you think about any of this?
No, that's never been in my mind, and I've never thought of me being a nudist as pushing back. It's just me. It's just who I am. It's being naked is just who I am. So I know that sometimes people can politicize nudism or politicize the naked body, but for me at least, that never happened.
Only certain people get listened to sometimes when we're thinking about what does it mean to be diverse as a naturist community, whether it's younger voices, LGBTQ plus voices of different people of color. The mistake that's made there is thinking that everyone who identifies in that category is the same. And so we can just listen to one person and ignore everybody else and think that we've got diversity down based on what that one person says.
That's Earl again from the website Clothes Free Life. There's at least one couple in Florida who's pushing for more inclusivity in naturism and nudism, particularly for younger people. Their names are Aaliyah and Sam. The two of them are a driving force behind Florida Young Naturists, an organization dedicated to bringing younger folks into the naturist lifestyle. They also practice naturism with their 3 kids and blog about their experiences. While naturism is part of their shared philosophy today, they came to it from different places. Aaliyah is a second-generation naturist, meaning she grew up in a clothes-optional household.
It was just a part of my childhood. So I grew up in Miami in Coconut Grove. My parents actually moved there from outside of Boston, Massachusetts, where it was just too cold. And they were seeking warmth and a nude beach. All of their friends were naturists. We had a pool in our backyard. All of my friends were their friends' kids. Everybody was naked. All of my family picture gatherings of, friends and family at home were naked. So it was just really normal to me. My parents talk to me and tell me stories about how I hated getting dressed. They would actually bring clothes in the car wherever we were going and say, you have to get dressed before we get out of the car. And so, yeah, it was a big part of my life.
Sam, how did you come to this lifestyle? And is there anything that drew you to it in particular?
I'll tell you, my upbringing was a bit different than Aaliyah's. My parents were not naturists. They were conservative Christian Americans. But I do remember growing up as a child, I think it was the 80s, right? So early 80s, we would just play in the backyard naked. Despite that, I grew up, to my teenage years, I grew very fast. I had acne, I just had a lot of insecurities about me, my body. And naturism for me was something I knew about growing up in Florida. But for me, it was an avenue of sort of breaking free of a lot of insecurity. The first time I went to a nude beach, I was 19. And I challenged myself. I'm like, if I can do this, maybe I can learn to be okay with myself and gain some confidence and sort of accept myself for who I am. And it did. It helped me. It was amazing to see these, Naomi mentioned, the older white people, just older people on the beach. And here I am. I'm 19 and I can't even leave my towel because I think I look terrible. And there's these old people with scars and just wear and tear of life who aren't looking perfect, but who are not giving a care to the world and just going seashell hunting. And I was like, what's wrong with me? And it got me really to have a bit of a paradigm shift to see things a little differently.
It's so interesting how the focus shifts so much. Like when, there's so much talk about, the bikini body and getting ready for the summer, and naturism and nudism flips all of that on its head, which is almost like, the less clothing you have, the more free you can actually feel, acknowledging your body in all of its shapes and forms. I'm curious about kind of body philosophy and body acceptance for you, Aaliyah, as someone growing up, spending so much of your time naked. How did that shape kind of how you went through adolescence and body changes, and think about your body in that process?
So I guess I feel like for me, it was just sort of a non-issue. I think for me and my personal beliefs, I focus more on how it's going to affect my kids, and especially being that they're boys. I think it's super important for kids to be comfortable with themselves and comfortable with everyone around them. And so I think that the fact that they're growing up in a clothing optional home, which, by the way, we absolutely 100% believe in clothing optional. So it's always their choice. We're not, it's not a religion for us. It's not like you walk in the door and you must take off your clothes. It's comfort. When I'm cold, I get dressed. I'm a wimp for cold. But for me, with the kids, having that choice and seeing our friends, different body types, different genders, different races, they have come with us to FYN bashes, and they see people that are different sexual orientations. There's somebody there who's in the process of transitioning from a male to a female, so they have both parts. And they're getting exposed to that and seeing that as that's just a person. That's just a person that's making their own choices in life. And I really believe that they're going to grow up to be more conscientious young men who aren't looking, they're not boob crazy. They look at women as individuals or at people as individuals beyond their bodies. And I think that if more people could grow up like that, it would be brilliant.
So you mentioned that, you all have 3 kids and you're raising them in this clothing optional household. How do you approach conversations with other families about your philosophy? Those who are not part of, you mentioned FYN, Florida Young Naturist, those who are not part of the spaces that you all frequent.
I mean, again, it's not something that we preach to everybody and try to convert people. There are definitely times where it comes up, or photos that we share on social media. Somebody saw an article that we were in and they'll bring it up and say something. But it hasn't ever been negative, and there hasn't ever been any issues associated with it.
Sam, I'd love to hear a bit more from you about that and kind of the community aspect that does draw people in. I mean, you mentioned the being comfortable, kind of acknowledging your issues with confidence, being able to connect to yourself in a deeper way. How about the connection that you make with other folks in the community? What's different about these friendships and relationships because of this shared philosophy?
So inclusivity breeds inclusivity. Like if you include people and you create something diverse, then that propagates into something diverse. I feel like when you have your clothes off, you sort of shed a lot of layers that goes beyond just simply what you're wearing. Like you take off a lot of stress, you take off a lot of presumption, like work, like if you're in your uniform, all of a sudden it's gone. And you get to be sort of who you were when you were 5, who you are when you're 25, who you are when you're 50. You get to be all of those people at the same time. And the conversations that you enter into for that reason are deeper and they're more honest.
Aaliyah, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that every single event we have with Florida Young Naturists, we have new people. Every single time. We've run workshops for new people and to give them information about the history and stuff. And so then it's one of my favorite things is to get feedback at the end, and you hear all these stories, and people post in our Facebook group and they'll send messages that it was the most amazing weekend that they've ever had. It was life-changing. They made so many new, deep friendships that feels like family that they struggle to make in their everyday life. And how is it possible that you made all of this in one weekend? If you come to an event and you don't come away with 30 new friends, you did something wrong. Like, it's just very, very welcoming. It's very we say something frequently, and that's that our naked friends are our best friends. They really are. We really are closest with these people, that we're not hiding anything from them. We're completely honest and open with them. And it's beautiful. It's a wonderful friendship. And that is something that we foster and create an environment that's ready for it. And people come and they feel it instantly.
Community connection and being fully in your body in a space where you don't have to think twice about what someone's intentions are. Honestly, that sounds pretty damn nice. But while we've talked so much about naturism being about unlinking sex from nudity, I was curious to know how couples who practice together think about their sex life.
It improves things. I think personally, we're big fans of being open and honest and being comfortable with yourself. And I believe really deeply that if you're comfortable with yourself, then you're going to be more comfortable with your partner, because you're not hiding anything. You're not feeling self-conscious about yourself. You're just open and being and connecting. And so that becomes a deeper, more meaningful relationship. And then, that makes sex better because you're not ashamed. You're not shy. You feel open and honest and connected.
If being naked with others in public still sounds like the stuff of nightmares, that's okay. There's no pressure to try it. But if you want to, Naomi says start small.
Just try being naked. If you step out the shower, go and stay naked for the rest of the day in your house and see how you like it.
Embodied is a production of North Carolina Public Radio WUNC, a listener-supported station. If you want to lend your support to this podcast and WUNC's other shows on demand, consider a contribution at WUNC.org now. Incredible storytelling like you hear on Embodied is only possible because of listeners like you. Amanda Magnus produced this show with editorial help from Kaya Finlay. Jenny Lawson is our sound engineer, and our theme music was written by Quilla. Special thanks to Billy Warden for the inspiration for the show, and to all of the listeners we heard from. Margot, Jill, Earl from the website Clothes Free Life, Patrika from the Black Naturist Association, and Nick and Linz from Naked Wanderings. If you want to support our show, we've got 3 easy ways for you to do so. Write us a rating or review on iTunes, tell a friend about us, or post about us on social media and tag us. We're on Instagram and Twitter at EmbodiedWUNC. I'm Anita Rao on an exploration of our brains, our bodies, and taking on the taboo with you.